Welcome to the Spa Girls podcast, the self-publishing podcast for authors. You're in the right place for the best writing, marketing, and publishing advice, plus interviews with industry experts and best-selling authors. I'm Cheryl Phipps.
I'm Shar Barrett.
And I'm Trudi J. Hello.
Hi.
Welcome back.
Welcome. Yes. Now, we're without Wendy today. She's not feeling very well, but you've got the three of us geniuses to give you the information that you need to have to become best-selling authors.
I love that positive,
Yes.
pumping us up, Trudi. That's awesome.
My apologies while I suck on a cough thing, just because I have a tickle, and I don't think you want to be hearing me hemming all the way through the whole thing. So I shall try and be discreet.
Sounds good. So this week we wanted to talk about the title is How to Get Unstuck is kind of what I've got, whether that becomes the title in the end. But and it was came about because I have been writing, I've just gotten back into writing the fifth and final book in my Dragon series, and I have put that book off for years. I am not even exaggerating. Like, it has been, I should have looked it up, but it's been at least probably 3 or 4 years since I wrote the fourth book in that series. And I planned it out. I had it all plotted out, and then I think I even wrote like 3 chapters of it a while back, and I just couldn't do it. There was just something, and I thought it was burnout. I thought it was, the COVID. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that word. Are we?
I think,
we're allowed to mention that, which shall not be named. I thought it was all those kinds of things, but whatever. And then I just this year I was like, right, I need to finish off the series that I haven't finished, and I made this decision to do Fire Mage, which is another series, and I'm writing that book, the second book in that series, chapter by chapter in my newsletter, and I found that really motivating. And so that was all that took to get that book going. And I thought, oh well, I should go back to the Dragon series. And I obviously had been ruminating over it, and I had been thinking, and I've talked to other people, and I've talked to these guys, and blah blah blah. So this is a very long story. I promise it has got an ending soon. And then I had this. I came up with this other idea, and I plotted it out the other day. And I was like, oh, I'm really loving where this is going now. I was feeling very excited. And I went back to the old plot that I had for this book. And I was like, she was kidnapped, and then she was being tortured, and then she felt really sad. And then she thought about killing herself. Yeah. And then she thought about killing herself, and then she couldn't do it. And then, but she was also getting periodically tortured. And then she felt really bad. And it was just like, that was literally the first half of the book. And I was like, no wonder I didn't want to write this stupid book. Like, I plotted myself this terrible book. And I don't know what I was thinking. And I wasn't depressed or anything. It wasn't like some kind of thing. It was just, that's what I thought had to happen, because I created this scenario where she got kidnapped at the end of the last book, and then I wrote another book from a different series that had her in it, and things happened, and she basically was unconscious for this really long period of time while all the others were doing all the action.
A good time of it, Trudi. You're so mean.
I know. And so I thought that I had to, I don't know what I thought. And I went back and I was like, no wonder I didn't want to write that book. And she's a
tortured heroine.
Yeah, and she's a really active heroine normally. And she she's a protector, and she goes out there and she battles people, and she's fierce, and she's a fighter, and she's all these things. And then I had her being sad and tortured.
She had no agency whatsoever.
Yeah, passive. Like, she became this passive, and it was the antithesis of everything she was as a character. And I think I just I'd plotted her into a corner, essentially.
But more importantly, you didn't like it.
Yeah.
Did not like that story.
And
so
it was your
how do you write something?
Subconscious just saying no, like, I don't want to write this.
Like, and literally that was what it was. And I didn't know it, and I couldn't see it at the time because I was so deep into it all. And I was like, well, I have to do this because this is the only way, and this is where it's at. Whereas now I've given myself a bit of distance. I talk to people, I kind of worked this stuff out, and now she's doing other things. Whilst so now she's, I mean, I'll tell you all, because you guys, I know you won't tell anyone, will you? So she's going to be unconscious, but she's essentially going to be astral traveling. So I'm probably not going to call it that, but she's going to come out of her body and kind of be moving around and trying to do things and help people in that way. And
situation solved.
Yeah, and it gives her, I mean, she can't do an awful lot with the main characters of the other book, but she can do things with other people, and she can be, like, it gives her some agency. It gives her, makes her more of an active character again, rather than being this passive character who just sort of lies about and is moaning,
literally,
and sad. And it just feels so good. I just feel so good about it, and it's literally that's what it took for me to, I mean, a few years worth of angsting over it, but just rethinking and just looking at the character and kind of going, this is not what she would do. And so for me, that is a big part of coming unstuck, getting unstuck, not coming unstuck, getting unstuck from this block that I had. It was reframing it, rethinking it, kind of looking at going, okay, if I'm blocked, what's the reason?
And but do you think it was the time you needed some distance, like actual time distance, to see that? Like, I'm wondering if you had even if we had said a week after you'd written out that plot, right? So, if we take ourselves back in time, do you think you would have seen it as clearly the issue then? I just wonder,
maybe not. Maybe
you need a bit of distance in these things.
Yeah, I mean, it could be that
to be in a different headspace, even though you
absolutely, because you've done a lot of work on that, Trudi. So I mean, you've moved on from we were talking about it earlier, being right or wrong. And you thought that was the right way to do it, where in actual fact there's no right way to write a book, is there? Well, to tell a story, because as long as the story flows and the plot is good, then your voice in it, that's what makes it unique. So the fact that you thought you had to put all that stuff in there could have been dark times, could have been because of the dark times, but I think more importantly the fact that maybe you just needed to move on from feeling that was the only way. And I think so. Time is a very good point. Maybe I did need just to have a bit more time. And I also think that I have done a lot of editing and work on the Demon series, and I think that has helped me to kind of be a bit more analytical in terms of looking back at the Dragon series, for example, and even plotting that I'm doing for other series, and just kind of be a bit more aware of some of the stuff that I'm doing in that. And so when I looked back at this plot that I had done for Dragon in Plotter, awesome, I love Plotter, and it was but I could clearly see that it was, like it was so obvious to me. So I don't know, maybe it was just time, but also I think there is a little bit of upskilling that I have done in that meantime. So if you don't feel like you have the upskilling, but you are still blocked, then maybe that's a point at which you could show a plot or something to someone else and get a bit of feedback like that. That might have helped me if I'd shown someone else this. Well, if we'd have read it, we'd have read it for you, we might have thought, maybe this could do with a little bit of a tweak.
And I think you would have too, right? Like you would have looked at it and said, Trudi, there's nothing happening here except her feeling sad, and I
don't blame her for feeling sad. Like, there's a lot going on there.
I mean, it was a sucky position she was in, to be fair.
And I had didn't need to be there.
And I had
not for all that time.
No, she didn't. And I had suggestions from other people, like they were talking about, because I've obviously talked about this with different people, and there was one suggestion, because I was like, right, I don't know what to do with her. She's supposed to be unconscious and tortured and can't do anything for this period of time. And they were like, well, why don't you when you're stuck in a position like that, sometimes do something that's shocking. Like, so for example, skip the story 10 years forward. So the next book, instead of explaining or going through that, you skip it 10 years to the future and start there. And I resisted that. I actually still resist that as an idea, because there's things that need to happen in that current timeline. So that didn't work for me, but maybe for someone else, just thinking, if you're in a plot that you're just going, there's something wrong with this and I'm stuck and I can't write and it's not working for me, then that something like that, like something shocking, something like jumping forward like that, or twisting something up, like maybe that would help.
Even a different point of view.
Exactly. So those are all good things to think about.
And the thing is, those elements might not necessarily make it to the final published product, but maybe just the act of writing, the epilogue or something like that can often get something unstuck as well. It's like blocking a drain kind of thing. Sometimes
Yeah.
you just have to put some strong chemicals down the top just to see.
And here's a thought: why not try not plotting? Just saying.
You wild woman.
Because you still get tangled out. You still get tangled up, but I think sometimes you have a lot more fun doing it.
Yeah. I think I have gotten quite tangled up in the idea of having to plot, and maybe I can plot a little bit less, and trying to do all those stuff. And I think that maybe is part of getting blocked. But I definitely, it's just for that particular circumstance with that particular book, that's what it was for me. It was like I didn't know how to fix it, and I had created this sad story, and this is what it's happened.
And also I think it's worthwhile pointing out that it's the 5th book in the series, right? So that comes with a lot of, whether it's conscious or not, quite a lot of responsibility from the author's point of view to finish the series, round it out, make a really satisfying ending. Like there's a lot of expectations that go,
especially when you're tying up endings, because you don't want it to be, oh, and then they did this, and that's why they did that. You don't really want it to be like that. You want the reader to go, oh, so that's why they did that.
Well, and added to that, actually, and the other thing that was stressing me out about this is that I've got the Dragon series here, and then I've got Demon Hunter and Hiding series, and there's stuff that's happened concurrently. So I've finished the Demon series, and there's a whole chunk of stuff that's happened in the last Demon book that I now have to rewrite and rejig from the perspective of my dragon character.
And what have we learned from that?
We're never doing that again. That is what we learned from that. Let me be a warning to all of you thinking of doing that. Don't do that, because that is awful. And I get stressed out anyway. Like time and within books is not my strong point. And so the idea that I now have to marry up 2 books in different
it sounds like a nightmare.
And
and
you just want it to be a portion of time that is irrelevant to exactly when. If you're joining it to another, if you're touching base in another book with those characters.
I think it was because they were happening at the same time, and I think what you want to do is like have one book and then the next book is in the future again. So you're not trying to,
because it's like when you've only got 2 people, and one chapter you tell it from the woman's story and the hero story, and then you tell it from the heroine's, whichever way you do it. You don't want it to be a retelling, even though it's from a different point of view. Part of it, sure, like emotions and things like that, but not the whole thing.
I don't even like it. Like the woman who wrote Divergent, is it Veronica Roth? Have I got that name right?
Sounds right.
So anyway, it's Divergent. Love that series, awesome, except for the ending. But I'm not going to tell you what the ending is.
So often that happens.
But then she rewrote she put out a book called 4, which was done, and it's the same stuff happening but from the guy's perspective, and I've never read it because I'm like, no, I already know what happens. Like I'm not really that interested. And it's I mean, people are clearly, and people love that kind of stuff, but just me personally, I've never really understood that.
Have you read The Last of Us? Have you watched The Last of Us?
No.
So it's a series starring one of the guys out of Game of Thrones, with a really, really young girl, not young, probably 14, 15-year-old, playing the heroine. And when you think that you know the story, then the next, it's serialized, so the next episode will be from one of the others' point of view and how that came to be. And I think that's a really cool way to look at, because we've talked about screenwriting before, how it can sort of help you and mirror your writing. And I not that I'm into zombies or apocalyptic stuff, but I think they've done it really, really well. So I think that's worth a watch if you're thinking of how to tell the story without throwing in all the backstory. I think that's
okay. Good. I'm going to go watch that. I haven't seen that one. That's good. Thank you for that. Yes. So that's my story in terms of getting unstuck and how I did it, and how so but the other way, like maybe your story is awesome, but there's other ways of being stuck, like so what other ways have we been stuck?
definitely with my editing, you know,
Yeah.
when I get back my edit, I
Yeah.
get maybe 3 or 4 pages of notes, not, you know, just like summarizing certain aspects and of the characters, of the tone, whatever. And then I get all the edits in the book. And sometimes you can get those 3 or 4 pages or more and absolutely be stopped because it just is overwhelming. It is just too much. I will say the last edit I got back was great. and so, but I still needed to think about it. So I read everything that I needed to read, and I put it away, and I worked on another book that's coming out later this year or early next year. And then I found I could go back to the editing, because they were 2 different series, but now it wasn't weighing on me. Like, I have to do this and I have to do that. I still have a timeline that I have to do, which is very important to me. I don't like missing deadlines. But just reading those notes and tackling them one at a time, you know, and going through the manuscript and clearing off all the little things that you can fix just like that. That isn't going to affect you when they say, now on page 122 and you've just added 3 pages, so now you don't know where you are, right? Although Command Find on a Mac is your friend. Or Command F, But to break things down, I think, into manageable, we've talked about eating the elephant one bite at a time. It really works. I think everybody I've ever spoken to can't just sit down for 4 or 5 hours and tackle the edits as if it was no big deal. Because they're already your words. You're kind of attached to them, aren't you? So
it's my least favorite part of the process. I know that some, and I listen, we've had writers on here, you know, that's their favorite part. Like, everybody's different, right? But for those that don't, I agree. Or setting a timer for 30 minutes. If it's that, I think for me, getting unstuck is just keeping the tasks either small wins, like Cheryl was saying, things you can quickly tick off, or setting a time limit on the pain.
And I do tick stuff off. I do tick stuff off as I've gone. So then, because sometimes you don't always do it in sequence, but then I know what I've got left to attend to. And if everything's ticked off, then all you've got to do is your final read through. You know, and pick up anything in your track changes, and that to me is fun, because I feel, you know, the end is in sight, and I feel, you know, I'm winning.
To speed up.
Yeah, that's awesome. I do agree. I don't know, do you find times of day affect you more? Like,
definitely,
I'll be in the afternoon as my low time, like sort of mid to late afternoon, and I'll be doing something, and often technical things or editing or something like that, and I'll get to a point where I'm like, it's all not working and I can't figure it out, and why is this not doing what it should be? And I actually have learned, and I didn't used to do this, I used to sit there for hours kind of going, whoa. Now I've learned to step away from it. I stop and I go, actually, I'll just do this later, and I'll do it later, and I'll come back to it and look at it and get it straight away. And and I've done that enough times that it's actually quite apparent to me that there is just certain times where I just need to take a breath.
We've
step
all got
away.
those rhythms
I think
energy flows. And
I think it's knowing what works for you, because if you say, oh, this is not going well this morning, I'll do it this afternoon, but this afternoon something comes up, then you're into the next day. I think you have to be very, very mindful of giving yourself a bit of a break, cutting yourself some slack, and procrastinating, because waiting for the right time, especially when you're writing as opposed to editing, waiting for the right time, it could never be the right time. You know, not truly the right time.
I'm not talking about procrastination. This is when you're getting kind of overwhelmed, and you know that this is like not that at all. That's definitely don't just procrastinate and wait for the right time to do these things, because that never comes.
You know, like as long as what you are putting to one side isn't urgent, then there's always something else to do. There's always something else to work on. And if it's not the writing or the editing, it can be the marketing, or it can be so many things. So many things, you know, doing some new blurbs or whatever. So it shouldn't be a waste of time. I think you do need downtime of doing nothing to do with the business, but you have to look at your your day, your week, your month, your year, and work out what's right for you.
I also think it's important to look at the patterns of where you get stuck too. There'll be some tasks maybe, or some particular aspects that you might need help with, or an accountability partner, or somebody that's really good at it. There's often, I've talked about it a lot, is Sarah Cannon's HB90 course, which is a planning course. And I'm not going to talk about planning per se, but a big part of it is identifying kind of what gives you joy and why you're doing things, right? And we talked about know your why and all of that, but it's also identifying the stuff that you struggle with as well. And I think we all have different strengths, and it's about, again, Becca Syme, strengths for writers. We talk about this a lot, but it's all true. And I think the writers are so different, but there are often, you'll find a group of people that, like myself, really, really struggle with getting the words down, or just the starting. Once I start something, I'm 100% fine. It's the starting. And so for me, it's working on the start. Other people, it's working on the keeping going, other people, it's actually stopping at the end of the day. They just burn themselves out that way. So I think it's kind of maybe, a little bit of self-reflection is a good thing too, and keeping a note. And I just, like, I have a weekly planner, I have a week, but I also have I literally just write 2 or 3 lines about how I was feeling and things that I struggled with that week to do with writing. And you start to see a pattern. And it might be a pattern, like Trudi was saying, about time, because ironically for me, my best time, of my most productive time, is from 3 until about 7 o'clock at night, which does not go well.
That's my worst time.
It's like,
of day.
What do you mean you want dinner?
It's the worst. Like, it's not great. So I've now learned to get dinner or plan it before then, so then it's ready to roll, or I put it in, whatever.
Do you know,
but
can I tell you my times? My times are early morning and up to sort of about lunchtime, and then late at night. Like, I go through this kind of low time,
second
and
wind.
then I get a second wind after 8 o'clock at night. I could keep going. I can stay up till
I can
midnight,
do that, but then I can't sleep, and then I'm dead the next day.
I don't often do it, to be fair.
I can't sleep if I work too late at night. It's just my brain is just wired, because I'm thinking about the next thing, which I often do anyway. But no, that's never going to work for me.
It's a balancing act. It is a balancing act. But I would say look for the patterns, and and there's some little techniques for me personally. I use the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 Mel Robbins, which I'm going to just write myself a note here. It's the 5-minute, 5-second rule, which absolutely for me, it gets you, it stops your brain suddenly thinking of a reason why you shouldn't start something now, because you can always find 100 reasons why you shouldn't do X, Y, Z.
So the one is when you get off your butt and actually do it.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You you get out of bed. That's that's where it starts. No, I'm not just going to have a quick scroll through, Facebook, or I'll just look at that Instagram reel because, that looks really cool. No, it's that. Once you get into the mode, once you get into some form of action, even if it's literally just standing up, often that then gets you out of that stuck. But it's when you're sitting there or lying there thinking about how stuck you are, that's the danger spot for me.
Or in fact, all the things that you've got to do, because then it just creates a sense of overwhelm, doesn't it?
It totally does. It totally does, and we've all got this. I mean, one of the big fallacies that I think I've only just figured out is that we never, ever have a clear to-do list. I was always thinking if I could just have another, 5 hours a day, I would have, 0 on my to-do list when I start the week. And it's nonsense. You never, ever
just find something
have a
else.
0. Ever. So a little bit of know thyself goes a long way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that's interesting, because it's not always, so it's for you, maybe it's sort of the mental kind of getting yourself in the right mental space or whatever.
Definitely.
For me, it's like finding the right time of day that works best for me. But there might be other things as well. Like it's not necessarily either of those for other people.
No.
If you're stuck, I'm just trying to think.
I have to be prepared. I have to be prepared for anything I do. So I need the paperwork beside me. I print off the 4 pages. I don't print off the manuscript, I print off the 4 pages. I have that beside me. I have some coloured pens. Shar would be happy with that. I've got my
That's good.
water, I've got my laptop, and that's it.
So it's kind of your
That's it.
environment set up.
Yeah,
in a
yeah,
way
and that
as
environment
well.
can be anywhere because I work around the house. But
and sometimes that's a good, like some people need to be in the same spot, in the same, with the same music and the same things happening, and other people working in different spots might be the trigger that actually gets them moving and going again. And it's just no, it is very true that know thyself thing is big, knowing what motivates you, because other people, I can imagine, having to have it perfect and having the preparation that you're talking about is going to be them, oh well, it's not perfect because the water bottle isn't filled properly and I can't find the lemon juice that I want to put in, and oh god, I'm going to have to go down to the supermarket to buy some more fresh lemons, and what about that, and the paper isn't right, I didn't get the blue paper and it should have been the pink paper, and I should, I can just see
totally
that happening.
No.
So whereas that's not you, Cheryl, and I know that you
I think I am a little bit OCD, but clearly that's just another realm that I'm not willing to go into. I think, especially at my age, that it's all a matter of being good enough, having enough of what you need without being pernickety about it.
I think that's a good place to aim for,
good
honestly. I think that's a good, peaceful place to aim for.
Yeah,
It's
took a
good
while,
enough.
not gonna lie.
These things come with hard lessons many times. Yeah,
I
absolutely.
remember saying to someone, because it's that perfectionism, right?
Yeah.
And again, that's another way to stop yourself. There's like, and when you say good enough, part of me is like, oh, but I want to be the best. But actually, I think it's an iterative process. So there's the perfectionists out there among us who want to, like the first go, have it be perfect and whatever. Whereas actually, perfection is the enemy of done. Did I say that already out loud?
It's very true.
No, that's true.
And good enough is how you get moving and how you get going and how you create the first layer. And if you want to keep sort of looking at it again and
I don't think it's occasional, like that'll do. It's like, I have worked so hard on this. I have done everything that I possibly can think of to make this good or great.
Yeah.
But and there's that doubt in your mind that it's not great. But still, it has to be good enough to publish. It has to be good enough to finish the editing, and it has to be good enough to, show somebody else.
It does, but then conversely, we've had also some authors on here that say the hardest thing for them is to actually stop the editing process and actually just release it out into the world.
Yes. How many people do we know that literally?
Lots of people like that. And that's another way of being stuck, is actually it's not about finishing something. It's you've got it finished, but you might be stuck in some part of the publishing process, and often it's the publishing of it, and I totally get that as well. That's just as much stuckness as it is creating the work in the first place.
Good word. I think if you've had a really good editor and you trust them, then you have to trust yourself eventually. If you get terrible reviews and you didn't like that, then maybe you need a different editor. So,
and I also think too, no work is perfect. Nothing is perfect. Whether it's traditionally published or self-published, there is always a comma, a spelling error, a content. There's something in there, not big, but there will be something, or it will be absolutely fine, possibly written with British English, and you'll get reviews saying that you spelt colour wrong because it was spelt with a U. It's sometimes people find errors that don't exist, or that's just not within their realm of experience.
They don't like it. Don't like a particular word.
You've got to
whatever.
accept these things, otherwise.
Bestsellers have it. Bestsellers have shitty reviews, and
just like Wendy's here.
Channeling here. But they do. They have 1-star reviews. They have people that write terrible things just because they can, because they're anonymous. And you just have to let that go. Just suck it up and know that it's not personal. Yes. That can't be personal because they don't know you.
Absolutely. No, totally. It's, I think, again, this is where possibly leaning on a couple of writer friends to help, maybe accountability, as Trudi was saying before with her newsletter, maybe putting a pre-order up, giving yourself some kind of firm finish line date. Is a good thing. If you don't want to do a pre-order, that's totally fine as well, because a lot of us find that that is just too much pressure, and that's too much, it just adds, it's not a good pressure. There's good pressure and bad pressure, and that's not a good pressure for a lot of people. But maybe having a kind of a, not a bet, but just an agreement with a writer friend, I'm going to publish by XYZ date, and just having that might help get over that.
I will say though that with the ability on Amazon, and I think all other platforms really, by putting that pre-order date out for a long time, or as long as you think necessary, and a bit more, up to a year, or I think some of them are even longer than that, that actually puts a line in the sand, because if you're like me and you don't want to let people down, or you just need a deadline to push you forward, then having that pre-order up, I can bring it forward. I can bring it forward as many times as I like, up to about 5 days before you publish. You can keep bringing it forward, and Amazon will keep letting people know that the book is now coming out earlier and earlier. But if I didn't have that, then I would take as long as I wanted, and not necessarily as long as I need. You know what I mean? There's a difference.
Yeah.
So that is definitely something to think about. Whether the deadline is going to stress you out and make you freak out, like Shar, a little bit, or whether you need the deadline and that's actually going to be what gets you going and motivate you. Again, know thyself, right?
Know thyself.
Yeah. So something else that is interesting is, and this is about psychology. I'm gonna not that I know the psychology of it, but we talk about at the end of a book how you only should have one call to action, or maybe two, right? And that's because if you give people 10 choices, they will choose none, because too many choices means you won't get anything done because you can't make a decision. Whereas if you get told there's this one thing you can do, like click this link and buy the next book, or click this link and become part of my newsletter, they are more likely to do that than if you say 10 different things they should do. So, and I think the same is true for us in our writing life. So if you give yourself 100 things to do and you have this big massive list, I think that can overwhelm you and make you do nothing. So if you're trying to write 3 books at the same time and you're not, and you're finding you're stuck on all 3 of them, or if you're trying to do 10 different marketing techniques, or you're trying to listen to all the podcasts telling you all the things and you find you're not doing anything, I feel like the thing you should be doing is narrowing your focus and giving yourself one book to focus on, and only write that one book. And if you're going to do some marketing, just start with one piece of marketing. So if you're stuck in whatever it is, like if it's writing the book, or if it's doing the marketing, or if it's organizing, maybe that's something you could look at. Like less is more. I'm telling my daughter this all the time. Less is more. Don't complicate your life, because it's actually not helping. It's not making you a better writer. It's not making you a better business person or publisher. It's actually making it worse. So,
and like, for example, on the social media side, trying to wrangle all the different, or learn all the different social media platforms at the same time is just going to induce rolling on the floor in the fetal position, curled up kind of thing. It's just, you're not gonna, it doesn't work. It's not gonna be fun, and you're not gonna get the good juice out of it. You're just not.
Do you know what's ironic is I resisted, for example, Instagram for a really long time. And I thought, I don't get it, and it's not the right, and now I love it, and I think it's my favorite platform out of all the others. And but I stayed with Facebook for such a long time, and I was like trying to get that sorted, and there was no real story to that. I've realized now that I've said the words.
But doing something that you enjoy is actually half the battle, isn't it?
It really is. It is. Life is too short to be doing things that you don't enjoy. It just is,
And forcing yourself to do stuff.
But
And I think what we're talking about in this whole getting yourself unstuck concept is that usually if you're feeling stuck, something's not right. Right? Like there's something that's not quite working for you in that, and how you're doing it. And whether it's because you've got the wrong storyline, or whether you're trying to do too much, or you're on the wrong social media platform, it's maybe about stopping and taking a breath and looking at everything you're doing and just trying to get a bit of honest feedback to yourself. Like, don't, it should be not what everyone else is telling me that I should do. It should be, where do I want to be? What am I trying to achieve with all of this?
Yeah. And the thing is, you might share it with people about a crazy idea, for example, for a story, and they might rightly say, you know what, space pirates on Atlantis
Who are actually monkeys,
who are dragons, and there's no category for that, right? But if it's something you love, I would still say write it now. I really would, because I think we can be a huge part of being stuck is trying to do the right thing, with the best of intentions, regardless of whether it's writing something, publishing, or marketing, or whatever, or just being a person. But I like Cheryl, the older I get, the more I'm like, you know what, if it lights your fire, I think you should do it.
And I have to say, that's actually my current issue with my new series that I've written. I was trying to write it into a genre that I thought was more popular, but actually doesn't fit how I write or who I am. And I've written this, I've now got this book, and it doesn't fit the genre because I didn't do it in a way that
there's nothing wrong with trying to figure out, equally, there's nothing wrong with trying to figure out if it fits somewhere or doesn't fit somewhere. But I still think, I'll just leave it at that. I think it's just
and there's people that can write in different genres and do very, very well for themselves.
Absolutely.
Right to market. I just have learned that that's not necessarily me, and
there you go.
And for me, I need to enjoy the process of writing just as much as I enjoy the process of.
And I also would add that there's a time and a place for writing books of your heart, or books that you feel like you have to write, and that could be right at the beginning of your career. And that could be later in your career. I mean, I've done that myself. Or it could just be something that you work away on when you've got a little bit of extra time.
Yeah.
Because nobody says what you have to publish at any given time. You decide all by yourself.
Now, here's the flip side to that, and it's not a but it's and. The flip side to that is readers may not necessarily want to read my space pirate dragons that live in Atlantis. So that's okay too. But I think if you make peace with that when you do it, then it's okay. Some books just have to be written because they need to come out of you, and that's totally fine. But it may not mean that they actually pay the electricity bill that month.
Perhaps a palate cleanser.
Maybe a palate cleanser, and maybe, as Trudi has talked about frequently, she learns so much more from what she's writing. It puts her in a different space or a different place as a writer, further along the career path, kind of thing.
Yeah,
that's true.
I do believe that as we go along, things are there and things are put in our way to benefit us and
I
to
totally
help
believe
us
that.
move forward in our careers.
I totally believe that, and I also totally believe in signs. And I'm not going to get all woo-woo because that's not.
Are you not?
Big,
Are
no.
you not?
But you look out for those signs, baby. If you're writing space dragons on Atlantis and you happen to be behind a delivery vehicle and the brand is Space Dragons of Atlantis, then take that as a sign. I'm just saying.
Right. You heard it
like
here,
a
folks.
literal sign.
And if you are writing
Not
Space
even a
Dragons of
symbolic
Atlantis,
sign.
please let me know.
A literal sign.
A literal sign.
So I think that was most of what we wanted to say.
I think so.
And
I think
I'm getting unstuck.
Yeah, and I would also say everybody gets stuck at times, right? It's actually part. I believe
no shame in it.
It's not a personality failing or a flaw. It's part. I believe it's part of humanness, and it's part of being a creative.
Actually, I just wanted to add, because she mentioned this before. She talked about the right versus wrong thing, and that was a big part of me getting myself unstuck too. So I just wanted to reiterate that. It's like I thought there was a right way to do things and there was a wrong way to do things, and I angsted over, oh my God, what if this is the wrong way to do it? And I would hold myself off because of making decisions and actually getting stuff done, because I'd be like, what if it's wrong? What if and that would be a disaster? And it was like very black and white, right? Like if I went one way and it was wrong, then it was a disaster, and I would never be able to do anything again. And that was it. That was my only opportunity. And I'm knocking things over and waving my arms around. And what I had to learn was that there are no right or wrong answers. It's just making a decision that best fits that right moment. You know, like, and sometimes you don't even know what's going to best fit. You just make a decision. And sometimes that decision will be like, oh, that wasn't quite what I wanted. So you iterate and you change and you move and you learn and you keep moving forward instead of getting yourself stuck in this one little place and not being able to go anywhere, because that's worse than actually making a decision that wasn't exactly what you needed, but learning from it and moving forward and figuring it out as you go along. Like, honestly, don't let yourself be stuck looking for the only one right way.
No.
And I'll add,
yeah.
I'll just add that don't forget that nothing's set in stone. You can unpublish a book and republish it
Just gonna say
when you've
that,
spent some more time on it.
Yeah.
I've said it a billion times, but it's going to hold true forever.
And you can always start again, right? Like if the worst case, like, that's something that helps me, is thinking of the worst case scenario possible of doing something. and there is always another chance. There's always another chance.
And that's actually something Amira used to do, and actually I think Brooke Castillo does it too. It's like, she'll say to you, well, what's the worst thing can happen? And you're like, well, I put the book up and no one buys it or something. And it's like, is that the okay, well, if
nobody read it, so they don't know.
Like, then what do you do? Like, you put the book up and no one read it. Well, maybe you change the cover, or you redo the blurb, or you do some marketing, or you know, that's literally not that bad a thing.
No,
you just,
it's not the end of the world.
No, it's not. No one died. Like, it's literally, you know, we are not brain surgeons here. We are writing books, and, you know, awesome books, but books nonetheless. So it's not, none of our decisions are going to be life or death in general. So that's
and from but I get it that you're investing time, energy, hope, and often money in different things, you know, in part of this journey. And so I would say 2 provisos: don't risk money that you can't afford to lose, and no person has the golden wand ticket answer. There is not one secret method to doing anything. There isn't. And anybody that says that, steer clear of them.
And if I didn't believe it before we began the podcast, which I don't necessarily know is true, now, after 8 years of having had so many different people who are all very successful and are doing really
all
well,
very different, and have all
so different,
so different in so many different ways. And, you know, one person does Facebook ads but no newsletter, and another person does only newsletter, and someone else does no ads, and someone else only, you know, like, there's just so many ways that people are successful, and that they're you can make your own way and find your own path. And
absolutely.
You can do it your way.
You can do it. You can do it your way. Absolutely.
100%.
All righty.
Okay, that's us.
On that
Hopefully that was in some way motivational and helped you in your.
So let us know where you get stuck and how you unstuck yourself. Unstick yourself. Come along to our Facebook page. It's Bar Girls Podcast on Facebook or Instagram, and we would love it if you'd buy us a coffee or more at patreon.com/Spa Girls Podcast, and come join our community as well, which we are just so enjoying having
and
fellow
if you're in
authors
the community, maybe we can help you get unstuck and give you some specific advice to you personally.
I think we've probably,
about
between the 4 of us, have covered all the different ways of getting stuck in different parts of this life.
And that is in fact the joy of the Spa Girls, is that we are all different personalities. We think about things in different ways. We're at different places in our careers, and we all write sort of different genres now, actually.
So I'm about to write Space Dragons from Atlantis, so,
a whole new
thing.
direction.
Just out of there.
All right.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you all for being with us for another episode of the Spa Girls podcast. We have enjoyed having you with us here today. We love you all, and we will be back again next week with another episode. But for now, farewell.
Be well.
Bye.
Bye. I can figure out how to turn us off. I will. There it is. Okay, bye.
Only 8 years, and she lost